Welcome to the Success Pick and Mix podcast. I'm your host, Nicky Raby, a professional pick and mixer. I'm a personal brand coach, a speaker, an actor, a creator, and a podcaster. I'm on a mission to help you find and create your version of success. Your pick and mix of life and business on your terms. A blend that complements your personality, your goals, and your circumstances. Since 2018, I've been sharing interviews and mini episodes to help you unlock your next step, to make it real and make it happen. Round here, we dream big. We go for the ideal version. We talk about money and make moves our future selves would be proud of. This podcast is free and available for you whenever you need it. So do rate, review, and subscribe for new episodes. If you want to go deeper with my support, check out my freebies house and unlock the rooms you choose. nickyraby.com/freebies house. I also have workshops, programs, and one-on-one bespoke offerings. For prices and availability, go to nickyraby.com. Thank you, as always, for spending some time with me and my guests. Now, on to today's episode. In today's episode, I'm talking to Penny Wincer, who is based in London, and she's a professional interiors and lifestyle photographer who also blogs about freelance life and raising a neurodiverse family. We talk all things about creativity today and managing that and how to feel more creative, how to bring out your creativity, ready to play whenever you may need it, and also how to manage your creative life. How do you remain in that positive, open mindset that you need to have whilst kind of paying bills and getting all the stuff done, basically. I would love it if you joined in the conversation. We're over on Instagram at Nicky Raby, and the show notes, as always, are nickyraby.com/podcast. I've got a couple of openings for July, so if you do want to have some one-to-one coaching with me, I would love to chat to you further. Feel free to go to my coaching page, nickyraby.com/coaching. Here's the episode. It's a long one. Enjoy it. Hi Penny, how are you?
I'm good, Nikki. How are you today?
Yeah, really well, thank you. I'm having a life admin day and it feels good. So, yeah, you're only the third person I've spoken to today, which is really lovely. So let's start with you. What do you do? How would you describe your working life?
I'm a professional photographer and I shoot interiors and kids, and that's the main thing I do for money. But then also on the side, I do a bit of writing now as well.
Oh, fantastic. And how did your creative journey start?
Well, I've probably way back in high school, really. I loved doing photography and film and theatre and all sorts of stuff in high school. And then luckily, I found a degree where I was able to do all of those things and I didn't have to give any of them up, which was really amazing. And so I ended up doing a double major in creative writing and film and photography. And this was in Australia. And at the end of that degree, I decided I think I'll take pictures. And so I got on a plane and I moved to London, and 18 years later, I'm still here.
Still here.
Yeah.
Isn't it weird when we're like, I was thinking about this the other day of like, youth just gives us such like, yeah, so I'm just going to do that. I'm just going to like go for it. And you just don't ever have a sense that it's not going to work out.
I completely agree. I did a lot of things in my youth that I look back and I think, wow, I'm glad I was brave. I lived in Thailand for a year when I was 18 before I went to university, and then I moved to London. And then a year later, I moved to New York, and then moved back to London again after that. And yeah, so I've done a bit of moving around, not so much lately, but
yeah. And how did that sense of adventure come from? Had you seen it in your family? I guess being from Australia as well, it's sort of so far from everywhere that you kind of know there's a whole other world out there on the other side of the sea. So how did you get that bravery for yourself?
Well, definitely part of it is being Australian, because you are very far away in Australia, and it is just the norm to pick up and leave, even if it's just for 1 or 2 years. It is the norm. And so from a cultural perspective, what I did was not unusual at all. But on top of that, my dad worked in film all my life, and so I'm the daughter of a freelancer as well, and it's all I've known, and it just never really occurred to me that I wouldn't just move somewhere. He lived in America for most of my teenage years, and so I did spend quite a bit of time going back and forth there as well to visit him. And I made the decision to go to university in Australia mainly because I had the feeling that I was going to leave afterwards and possibly not come back, although I had no plans. I didn't really make any plans, but I just had a feeling that I would probably end up living in America or the UK. I did have a green card for a while, so that was a possibility, but I ended up making the UK my home.
And how has it changed since moving into, proper adulthood and having children? And we were on the same bill at an event a little while ago, and we talked about freelance life and how we navigate it and how we, I guess, make friends with it. That sometimes there is this sense that you're a freelancer and you're just kind of, choosing when to take time off or just sort of feeling creative. But there's a lot of logistics that go into that as well. How has that changed as you've got older?
Well, I think it has changed enormously, actually. But I think I was at a really big advantage to begin with. Having been the daughter of a freelancer, I never really questioned it to start with. And then also, I've really only ever had one job in my life for about 18 months. And so I also didn't have a lot of baggage to lose, a lot of office baggage to lose. And so I've been freelance, I guess, since I was 23 or 24. So I think right from early on in my career, I just made it the way I wanted it to be, rather than, I think a lot of people, if they've been a traditional working environment for quite a long time before they go freelance, there's a lot that they have to kind of unpack and realize they don't have to be at their desk from 9 till 5 if that's not suitable for what you want to do. And I never really had to do that. But how it's changed from when I first was freelancing to now, it is quite different. I mean, first of all, I was an assistant for 6 years, and so that was quite different. I worked for probably 4 or 5 photographers at any one time, so I was on shoots all the time when I was working. And I was also traveling enormously at that time, probably at least half the time I was away.
Wow.
And then when I started shooting myself, which was when I was about 28, it did change because I switched to doing, when I was an assistant, I worked with fashion photographers and documentary photographers, which is why I traveled so much. And then now as a photographer, I do interiors and lifestyle, which I do still travel quite a bit. Actually, I'm going to Norfolk tomorrow for a couple of days.
Oh, lovely.
But I don't travel to anything like the degree I did before, because when you're working for lots of different photographers, you're obviously always on their shoots. Yeah. And so I was on shoots all the time. Now I'm shooting some of the time, and I'm doing post-production, and I'm, doing all the kind of admin around running a business as well. So I'm not shooting as much as I was back in those days. And also, obviously, I have kids now, and my life has changed quite a bit. And so I have to balance out trips away and also the amount of days shooting with me wanting to be around for them as well. And I think I'm pretty lucky, actually. I think I have a really nice balance at the moment, which is I tend to do sort of 3 full days work a week and then 2 sort of school hour days. And I try and weight the shoots onto the 3 full days that I do, if possible. Sometimes I can't. Sometimes I have to, it gets a bit spread out into the rest of the week. And then doing kind of admin, post-production, kind of officey type stuff on the other couple of days. Although, life isn't perfect and tidy. It doesn't ever look exactly like that. But that's generally how I try and organise my time these days.
What's been in your sort of success toolkit of freelancing life? What are your what's the rule book that you live by, or your own sort of non-negotiables?
Oh, non-negotiables. It's funny, actually. Non-negotiables, I'd say it's a tricky one because things have changed so much for me in the rest of my life the last few years. Yeah. it's hard to say that anything is non-negotiable in a way, because there's always a different way of doing things.
Yes.
I've got 2 children and one of them is disabled, and I'm also divorced now as well. So what I think a lot of us think is non-negotiables, what we can't imagine having without or doing without or doing, differently. It's not actually always so non-negotiable as you think. You always find ways, no matter what happens and no matter what circumstances you find yourself in, there are ways to make things work. They just look really different than you expected them to look.
That's so true. My mum was a teacher before she retired at quite a complex school, let's say, and she always used to talk about the new normal. Like she'd get to a point where she thought she'd seen and experienced everything, and then something would come out the water and completely blow her away, and she's like, oh, we're in a new normal now. But actually adapting to that and knowing that I guess you're going to be okay and that you can work through things is you get a lot of lessons from those as well, don't you?
Yes, it's very true. So I would say that there's almost nothing that's non-negotiable in that sense, because I have learned over the years that I can bend in the wind, so to speak.
Yes.
But in terms of what I like to do, I, for instance, have childcare 3 days a week, no matter what. And even though I'm freelance and even though I'm not shooting those days, I made the decision a while ago, which was when my son went to school. So from the time my kids were 3 and 5, when they had like preschool and school, to have before and after school care 3 days a week, kind of no matter what, because I've got a nanny on salary. And that was a difficult financial decision to make, and it's a big commitment. But I made the decision because I thought, actually, I need some days where I've got the headspace of many hours ahead of me. And it's amazing, just mentally knowing I've got until 6 p.m. can make such a difference.
Yes.
Whereas, the 3 p.m. school pickup it can be a real thing looming over your head throughout a whole morning, and it's just a very, very short day. So I made that decision a while ago, and I've stuck with it, and I'm really, really glad I have. But obviously it is difficult. I know a lot of people's dream, or what they imagine their dream is to be able to stop work every day and pick up their kids from school. And that's really lovely if that's what you want to do. And obviously I want to be around quite a lot for my kids, but I do also need headspace, and especially because my son's got quite a lot of, he's got very high needs. And so to me, giving myself those full days and allowing myself the kind of almost luxury of enough time to complete my VAT, enough time to do post-production really properly without rushing it, enough time to take a lunch break, even if it's only short, but just, giving myself time is really, really important. And I don't force myself to be doing exactly money-making things in that time either. I don't say, okay, well, it's Tuesday and the nanny's working till 6:30, so therefore I have to be doing only these jobs that directly affect my income, because there are certain things that obviously are really easy for me to get on with, which is stuff that has a deadline. If I've got a client who needs pictures, by Wednesday, they will get done. It's very easy and straightforward when you have a deadline. But there's a whole other side to running a creative business that's really easy to neglect. And especially when my kids were very small, I did neglect them. I just had to put them on the back burner for a while. But since they were a little bit older and I had a bit more childcare, I give myself the space to do those other things. And that sometimes it's something really practical, like working on my website, updating my website, making sure my agent has the latest pictures from a shoot that's been published so that she can use them as well. So really practical things. But other times it's actually not that practical and not necessarily directly related to earning money immediately, but it might be going for a coffee with a stylist that I really want to work with, or making time to go see an exhibition that I really want to see, going to a magazine shop and having a look at some magazines that I was thinking about pitching some stories to. And it's stuff that may not earn me money at all, or it might not earn me money for a while, or it's just building up all the things that go into my business. And it's just sort of accepting that sometimes it doesn't look like earning money, even though eventually it all kind of feeds into it.
That's so true, because I realise more and more so that because everybody has a voice and everybody has a platform, and I'm sure you will have seen people going, I'm a photographer now, and you're like, really? You've just picked up a camera. But the sense that you have to come to the table with a really full life and a really full portfolio in terms of what you can offer, that it's not just standardized anymore. Like, I've got the degree or I've got the qualification and now I just take pictures. That you need to have so much of an idea of what's going on in the world, what's trending, what people are talking about, what is an absolute no-no at the moment. And you have to bring that full version of yourself to the table.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think also I would definitely say that not a single client in my entire career has ever asked me whether I have a degree, and couldn't care less if I had one.
Yeah, there's always this pressure of like, can you bring your GCSE results to the table? It's like, no, because nobody's ever asked me.
No one cares. No one cares. Yeah, I mean, I think in a way the job is about the actual job is about fulfilling briefs, essentially. You know, a client comes to me and I need to fulfill their brief.
Yeah.
And so I guess I bring a lot into the room, and it is my experience, my technical experience and my creative experience, and it is also just the way I see things and the way I see the world as well. And a lot of that comes from all of the media I consume and all of my inputs. I spend a huge amount of time reading. I think my reading informs my pictures almost as much as any other visual thing might inform it. And in fact, films inform my visual storytelling more than other people's photographs. In fact, I don't, apart from Instagram, just because I enjoy it, I don't really look at other people's pictures very much. I don't actually consume any magazines particularly. I do check on them and see what's going on. And I know the magazines I either get commissioned by or sell stories to, I do keep an eye on to make sure I know what they want.
Yeah.
But I am not their target market a lot of the time. For me, you know, what informs my work is more likely to be a film or a book or a play than say an exhibition of photography or the latest kind of pretty independent magazine that's sort of, you know, on someone's coffee table.
That's so great. And it's and I would love to know sort of how you pull all of that together in terms of pitching and being proactive and putting yourself out there. How do you encapsulate that sense of, I'm actually bringing a lot to the table here without sounding like a bit of a twerp?
I guess I don't really say it explicitly. It's just I work in a couple of different ways. One of the ways I work, which has been growing more the last few years, is I find so for the interior stories that I shoot for magazines, I work with a writer and we find the houses ourselves and shoot the story and sell it to magazines afterwards as a package.
Right.
And that's one way I shoot. And with that, it's, you know, a lot of that is about contacts and little searching and finding and having, you know, random little conversations with people and getting someone to put them in touch with somebody else. And so a lot of that is chat and being personable and being nice to people and just being curious about people's lives and asking a lot of questions and having conversations. And then when I find places, what I'm looking for is not just a pretty house. I'm looking for an interesting story. Yeah. And so I guess one of the skills that I've learned over the years is looking for a story and what's the real story behind it and what's interesting about this place. It's not what it looks like. It's often what the stories behind the place that are the things that are really interesting. And then on the flip side, so the work I do get commissioned, the commercial work, it's about kind of coming to the job, and I think a lot of my job is coming in with confidence and knowing what's going to work and what's not going to work.
Yeah.
And also just getting on well with people and managing relationships. Actually, a lot of what I do is managing relationships on set, because there's usually a bit of a team, and it's there's always a bit of not a tension, but like there's always a bit of a pull between what a commercial client wants and what I do, and
Yes.
trying to get those two and marry them together. So they might come to me and have hired me because they love they'll show me which pictures they love in my portfolio, but then they've got a very certain vision for their brand, and they're coming from a much more commercial perspective, and it's trying to bring those things together and make everyone happy. And by making your client happy, you're not necessarily always doing exactly what they say, because often they'll say something but it's not what they need. And so it's about understanding and recognizing they've hired me for a reason and they like what I do. And so I spend a lot of time gently nudging a client in a certain direction, just to maybe be a little bit braver or a little bit more creative with something. Because they have hired me for a reason, and I've got to sometimes remind myself, if I feel like I'm having to push a little bit, that they've hired me and this is why I'm here. I'm here to hold their hand through what might feel like a slightly scarier direction or a slightly more risky creative direction, because I'm not the brand. I'm coming from the outside and I'm helping them express their brand in a slightly different way. And so that's, I think, that's quite a creative part of my job in a way, is managing those relationships and making sure that at the end I produce work that they're really happy with, but they wouldn't necessarily have known they wanted right away.
Yes, I found that a little bit in acting as well, where sometimes you work with a really terrible like agency person at the sense of the casting. Like, you're working with somebody who is leading the casting, but they don't know how to talk to actors. They just want whatever they put on screen not to look terrible, and so they're always on the cusp of going, can you just act better? You know, they don't know how to articulate it, and you're like, I don't really know what you mean, but sure, I'll give it a go. And I think it's those moments, isn't it, on set, of knowing when to speak up and then knowing when to get your head down and just crack on with the job in hand.
Absolutely. No, I couldn't agree more. And I work with some very, very decisive people who know exactly what they want and always know what they want. And they know either their magazine or their brand inside out, and they know when they see it if it's right or not. And we have a 100% trust thing going on where I just completely listen. And then other people who are maybe a little bit less confident in their decision making, or otherwise have a lot of people above their heads who they have to appease.
Yes.
Which happens a lot. And they need a lot more nurturing on set to try and help them feel confident that what we're doing is the right thing. So it's a lot about relationships, my job, which I guess some people might find a little bit surprising, but and I'm really lucky. I just work with the most amazing people, and I get to work with different people all the time. I absolutely love that side of the job. It's definitely the best part of the job is the variety of people I work with and how interesting they are, and also they're just so lovely in this world of interiors and stuff. Everyone is very, very lovely, and also everybody realizes that they're not saving lives. You know, it's not taken too seriously. I mean, everybody works very hard, but doesn't take it too seriously, which is really lovely environment to be in.
I always think about those actors that are in EastEnders or Coronation Street and they've been there for like 29 years, or like the lady that has worked at Oscar's nursery. Like, poor thing, she looks so tired. But I found out the other day she's been there 38 years, and I'm just like, wow, in the same room. And that is so sort of alien to me. And I really admire people who can provide that loyalty and, you know, be that sort of figure in that organisation. But it just does make me want to run a mile and think, gosh, I could never do that.
It's just the idea is so foreign to me. I can't quite
I'm getting a bit hot and sweaty just thinking about it, like, whoa, a bit claustrophobic. With, you know, the practicalities of life and being a mother and attending to everybody else's needs as well, how do you keep in control of your creativity, and how do you make your creative life work for you? Because I think sometimes we can feel like we have to wait to feel creative, or we walk to the shed at the bottom of our garden and that's where the magic happens. And sometimes the magic needs to happen in the 90 minutes that we have available. How do you connect with that side of yourself?
Well, I think part of it is prioritizing it. And I think it's really easy to prioritize everything else, including earning money, of course. And it is extremely important to earn money, obviously, and also attend to everyone's immediate needs. But I think it's also okay to treat your need to live a creative life as seriously as, say, eating good dinners or getting a little bit of exercise. To me, it's exactly the same, and it's all kind of comes together as a part of looking after myself. But it's definitely not a matter of giving yourself loads and loads and loads of time and headspace in the perfect environment and, the perfect desk set up so you can sit down and, the perfect music. And that's just not the reality. And I can't remember who was talking about this, but I was listening to a literary agent speaking recently on a podcast, I think, or something. And she was just saying, it's, people imagine that, if they can just get away to a cabin in the woods, they'll finish that book. Right. Or if they just had 2 weeks where they didn't have the children, they could just do this amazing thing. And she's like, actually, you know what? Time and again, I see that just doesn't happen. You give someone the space and they still don't know what to do with it.
I think I just end up watching like This Morning or Holmes and the Hammer and just kind of staring gormlessly because I couldn't believe that, I'd have some free time to actually get stuff done.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I just think you just need to carve out little bits here and there and not beat yourself up for doing it. I think that's the most important thing. And it might just be things like, reading is a big one for me. I spend a lot of time reading and I listen to a lot of audiobooks. And luckily for me, I can retouch at the same time as I'm listening to audiobooks. So I can officially be getting stuff done and, meeting a deadline and also listening at the same time, which is amazing. Also podcasts. So that is good. But I do things like I just prioritize it. I actually can't remember the last time I watched a TV series. It might have been January, possibly. Sometimes I watch a little bit in the winter. And I just don't, because I know I won't get time to read if I'm watching TV.
Yeah.
And so you make choices like that and about how you want to spend your time. And it's amazing, actually, if you really broke it down, how many little bits of time you could get if you made a slightly different choice with it.
Yes.
Not that we should be expecting ourselves to make the perfect choices all the time, because, of course, there should always room for, a bit of mooching about.
Yes.
But I think it's okay to need what you need. And so that might be, it might be something like I'm doing more writing now and I'm not earning money from it, but I don't care. I'm going to do it because it's fulfilling a side of me that I'm not getting from my photography. I've been doing photography now as a photographer now. I've been 12 years or something, and I really enjoy it and I really love it. But it is a certain kind of thing.
Yes.
And it's, there's a whole other side of me that doesn't really get completely fulfilled from that anymore, especially as I'm getting kind of, as I've been doing it for many years. And I think it's just okay to carve out that time for yourself. And I say this as somebody who now has children in school, and it is completely different. Yes. When you're in those early days and as someone who doesn't have any family in this country and also as a single parent, I don't get any free childcare from anyone. Everything is all paid for. So it can feel really difficult to make that choice to not be desperately hustling for money during that time. It can be really difficult. But I think the more you kind of keep yourself open to ideas, the more you're able to then do with your business. So for me, taking a little bit of time out of a day to walk, because I really enjoy walking really helps me think. Walking and spending 45 minutes going for a walk instead of sitting at my computer hustling can actually do much more for me and my work long term than if I was sitting down cold emailing or doing something like that, because I think you do sometimes need a bit of distance and you need time to reflect. And if you don't get that, often what you'll find is you're just chasing your tail and you're not opening yourself up to different kinds of opportunities, which all eventually do lead to money. I always find. So.
And you're not necessarily thinking in your most creative self. You become a bit, I know if I just keep putting in the hours, I just end up churning stuff out, and it's not coming from necessarily a tailored place or like the best place from me. Whereas if I have a bit of perspective and stand back on it a little bit, I can, by the time if I've been away, by the time I write the email, I can bash it out in 10 minutes because I know what I'm writing, rather than just going, oh, blimey, and it feeling really stuck.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's all about perspective. And I think taking little bits of time to do something else, or to consciously give yourself thinking time as well. I find walking is really good for thinking time. And I also find as well, when I consciously reflect on what I'm doing with my work. And I think sometimes it's sort of easy to just keep doing the jobs that you have to do, because there's a lot of jobs that always have to get done. But if you take a little bit of time and a bit of headspace to regularly almost do a checking in and a reflection about where you want things to be, where they are now, where you want things to be, what kind of clients do you want to have, how do you want to be spending your days, and all those actual conscious reflection bits as well. Sometimes that just requires time, and we can't necessarily do it really, really quickly on demand in that 10 minutes before that meeting or whatever. There needs to be headspace and time for those things to happen.
Well, I started my planning actually for this year back in November, which felt a bit bonkers because Christmas hadn't even happened, and I'm already going, January, woo, let's do this. But what I was able to do was to start to write those ideas down as and when they came, and give myself that. And I'll do it again this year, because it sort of really helped me, rather than having that pressure on New Year's Eve going, right, goals for next year. And then I end up just going, go to the gym. And I'm like, I don't want to go to the gym. The gym is not my happy place. Like, I'd much rather do a dance class or go for a run or something like that. But I think you're right that you have to take control. And if you're not getting what you need to kind of figure out what that is, so you can then find it, rather than going, why is everybody else getting the opportunities that I want to have? And you have to be deliberate in terms of your own career.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really important to be really deliberate, and it can seem difficult from the outside. You sort of think, oh, I'm here and I want to be there, and I don't know how to get from here to there. But actually, once you give yourself a bit of time and a bit of headspace and a bit of exploring time, the next step reveals itself, and you don't get all the steps. All the steps don't reveal themselves, but the next step will, and then the next step, and then the next, and it's just, one thing at a time. But unless you give yourself a bit of thinking space, those things get lost in the everyday busyness, really. And time will fly by without you kind of almost noticing. So I'm a big advocate of give yourself a bit of time, even though it doesn't look like on the surface you're actually doing anything money making. Yeah,
and that's when random people go, this freelance thing, all you seem to do is have coffees. You're like, yep, that is right. I watched a great documentary yesterday actually about fellow Aussie Tim Minchin talking about how he brought Matilda to Sydney, and it kind of dated the whole process of him writing the music for Matilda. And bizarrely, he'd written to Roald Dahl when he was about 25, saying, if I ever wanted to do this, what's the process? And they came back and they said, we need this synopsis. And then he sort of thought, oh, I can't really be bothered to do that right now. And then it came back into his life later. And one thing that he was saying is he's had more and more of his success that people go, oh, wow, you've just arrived from nowhere. And he's like, no, I've been doing this a long time. So that element of craft and skill and technical ability, it's always coming back, and then sometimes it's just that time to sort of go for it, and you are the right person for the job at that moment.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I think, as a creative freelancers, we're kind of always building our skills. And one job, each job we do almost builds builds on top of the previous ones in terms of experience. And what we're doing when we get hired is bringing all of that experience along with us. And so what might not be right for someone 1 year, in 2 or 3 years' time, they're the perfect person for that job because they've moved forward with their with all their experience and everything, definitely.
Yeah, it's so true. A little quick fire round. Has there been a book that has really changed your life or made you think differently about how you operate in your life?
Oh, so many books. I think, though, probably the biggest changer for me was when I was living in New York in 2001. I was working full-time for a fashion photographer, and my flatmate was a writer, and she gave me a copy of, and it was just after 9/11, and it was all just, everything was a little bit of a mess, and there was just so much sadness and grief and stuff going on in the city. And she gave me a book called The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. I don't know if you know this one.
I do, yeah, I do.
And I did it then. It's a 12-week course for anyone who doesn't know. It's a book, but it's structured in a 12-week course about either capturing or recapturing your creativity. And it's about kind of trying to figure out the ideas that have maybe held you back from thinking it was okay to kind of explore creativity. And it was amazing, absolutely amazing. And I've done it so many times, the full 12 weeks. I've done it loads and loads of times. And I will still pop back and open it up, and I always recommend it to people. So that for me, I think it's probably about 25 years old now, that book, I think. I think it's sort of in the mid-90s.
Really dated,
very dated cover.
Yeah, it does. It could look like it's a sort of a language book for, learn German in 21 steps. It does sort of have that feel. But no, that sense of morning pages. And one thing that I've started to do, even if it's not morning pages that I can do, if I'm just like, oh my God, my kid's been up all night and I can't even put pen to paper. Sometimes I just speak into my phone and I record it as a voice note, and that really helps sometimes.
Oh, that's a good tip, because this has been actually one of the saddest things about becoming a parent. Isn't this terrible? I used to do morning pages diligently for years. And so for anyone who doesn't know, morning pages are like doing some automatic writing as soon as you wake up, just to kind of help you kind of clear your mind and also get a little bit of stuff out onto the page. And her theory behind it is that you end up answering your own questions when you kind of keep turning up on the page and you keep writing. You always figure your way out. You figure your path through things.
Yes.
Because once also they're on the page, if they keep turning up every day, you can't ignore them as well. So that's a really good way of not being able to skirt through life without facing up to what you're finding difficult. You can't numb everything. You've actually got to, once you're seeing it on the page every day, you have to face it, which is really, really useful. But becoming a parent, I have a child who doesn't sleep. He's 8 and he still doesn't really sleep, and he's up at any point from between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. every day. And so I can't get up before him. It's just not possible. So I don't do morning pages anymore. I do write at different times of the day, but I felt quite sad. I've always felt quite sad, actually, that's one thing I've had to give up. But doing a voice memo, that's a really good idea. I think I might start doing that.
Well, it came because I was just like, I was not looking like the girls that were journaling on Instagram, fake journaling, because I was just like, I'm not sitting down with my beautiful vase of peonies, and just because I've got hay fever anyway, I wouldn't have them on my desk. But like I felt like I wasn't doing it perfectly, and it was a real block for me of going, I haven't got the right notebook, or I need to go and get a better pen. But the voice note, we
don't have 25 minutes anymore, because of course you don't have 25 minutes when you're a parent, especially not in the morning. Never.
Exactly. And actually that's when, like, my partner is not a morning person in the slightest. So sometimes I feel like I'm kind of, an 80s PE teacher in a shell suit and a whistle trying to get everybody out of the house going, come on, let's go. But I will recreate that image for you one day. Anybody who wants to see that, I'll put a picture of me in a shell suit on Instagram. But the funny thing with the voice note was also, as creative moments happen, is sometimes you're faced again with those things where you're like, oh my goodness, I've not dealt with this, or this is still kind of holding me back. And it's been another really good thing. I mean, I'm sure if anybody like stole my phone, they'd think I was a complete lunatic. But those, sometimes I've spoken them out loud, those letters that I wanted to write, or those things I wanted to say, but never sent them. And, you know, they're clearly, especially when I made the 2-minute commitment or whatever it is to say it out loud, they're clearly in the background somewhere. And that's been fascinating. And then I leave them on my phone for 3 or 4 days, and then I delete them. And then there's also that sense of going, I've done that now, I've packed it away. And sometimes it pops up to say hello in a different outfit. But on the whole, it is a really good way of clearing it.
Yeah, it's a really good way of processing it. That's excellent. Yeah. And so the other thing that she recommends in this book is a bit of a something that's a bit of a non-negotiable, I guess, which is what I've always done this, is the idea of the artist date, which is taking yourself and your artist self out to do something just for you. And it's got to be fun. It's got to be fun. It's not allowed to be kind of what you should be doing. There's no shoulds involved. Yeah. So if you don't like going to art exhibitions, you absolutely do not do that on your artist day. Yes. And mine is often, and whenever I can, I do this, is bookshops. I just go and I hang out in a bookshop for an hour, and it's one of my favorite things to do. Just smell the books and look at all the covers and read and decide what I want to read. And but so I think probably from my early 20s, I really made a big effort to always give myself just a little bit of time to fill the well. And it's something that obviously when the kids are really young, it's very difficult to do, and it doesn't happen as often. But I think it's still a good habit to do it, even if, say, that once a week turns into once a month instead, when your kids are very small. But hopefully, I hope that most people can allow themselves just even the tiniest bit of time. And it might just be that, like I love reading YA books. I mean, there's no reason. I mean, they're just really fun. And so sometimes I just let myself read a YA book. Like, who cares? You know, I don't have to be reading something that's necessarily informing, you know, I don't know, that's informing me politically or anything like that. And so I allow myself to do things like that just because I want to do them.
Yes. Gosh, isn't there such a big topic around permission? You know, what we should be doing, or what outside looking in says is the way to do it, and it really isn't. It's you know, sometimes I've watched, you know, a lot of America's Next Top Model, you know, this is a long time ago, but you kind of go, gosh, those sense of like how people shoot or how they operate, or the kind of characters within that. Sometimes, yeah, just kind of exploring that has been interesting. I've got one more question, which is, where would you like to be in 5 years' time?
Ooh, where would I like to be? Well, from a work perspective, I guess you're asking. I still want to be shooting. I still really, really enjoy my job. And there's more things I want to do with my work as a photographer, for sure. But I would hope that in 5 years I'm hoping I'm spending at least half my time writing as well.
Oh. Have you got a book in you?
Yes, potentially. Yes. It's hard to say what that looks like at the moment, but yeah, I'm spending more and more time doing it, which I'm really, really enjoying. And actually, that's been one of the fun things about Instagram. Actually, has been that kind of little micro blogging type thing, which is really fun. I really enjoy it, and that's it's been a nice way to do little short form writing, and I can justify it for work because I do need to be on Instagram for work.
Yes, exactly. And there's something in me that I can't just take a picture of flowers and hashtag what they are and then go Monday vibes. Like, there's something in me that I have to justify it, or I have to tell this, you know, I'm a storyteller. I have to be able to put a bit of more into it. So yeah, you're right. It's a lovely sort of safe platform to play around in.
Yeah, I'm not sure how other people use Instagram. I guess everybody uses it differently, but to me, it is a storytelling platform. Pictures are a big part of that storytelling, but it is 100% a storytelling platform, I think. And I And that's what I find interesting about it. I don't go on there because I find the pictures so incredibly inspiring, although of course sometimes they are, but it's because it's the marriage of the pictures and the words that really make it what it is. And so, yeah, no, I really enjoy it.
Absolutely. So if we want to find out more about you and come visit and continue the conversation, where should we go?
Well, so I am on Instagram, as I said. I'm just at Penny Wincer on Instagram, and also on Twitter, not quite as much though. And my professional website is pennywincer.co.uk, but that's just my portfolio mostly. And but I also write at applesandoptimists.com, and that's really a kind of mixture of writing about neurodiversity and raising a neurodiverse family, and also really a lot to do with my work life and creative freelancing as well.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. Oh, I've learnt so much, and I have got a copy of that book, so I'm going to go and pull it out and get involved and go back to it. I think sometimes these simple habits are really great things to connect into. So thank you. And I'm going to take myself on a creative date. Ooh, where shall I go?
Do. Just whatever makes you get excited. Yeah, I
feel like I need some kind of fabulous outfit as well. Maybe some sort of like peacock blue hat or something, as my creative vibes for the day. Penny, thank you so much. You've been so wonderful. And
well, thank you.
And I know you love listening, so it's such a treat to have you on. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to today's episode. If you haven't already, feel free to rate, review, and subscribe for all the brand new episodes. If you want to go deeper with my support, check out my freebies house and unlock the rooms you choose. nickyraby.com/freebies house. I also have workshops, programs, and one-on-one bespoke offerings. For prices, availability, or just to have a chat with me, go to nickyraby.com. Thank you, as always, for spending some time with me and my guests, and I'll see you next time.